Hello, YouTubers and viewers, and all my subscribers. It's me again. Well, this video is actually going to be a rather interesting take, and this is about a topic that I'm not thoroughly um, knowledgeable in, but I just started gaining more knowledge in the past few days, and this is about Black Lives Matter. But what I and I wanted to mention that the impression that I had of Black Lives Matter was not a very good one. I mean, I know it first started as a just as some simple hashtag, or it said pound, should I, excuse me, hashtag Black Lives Matter. It started as a trend on Twitter, and the movement was inspired by the Ferguson, Missouri riots in 2017 after the killing of Mike Brown. And of course, this to me was interesting because when I first learned about it, I thought to myself, well, this should be interesting. This should be good. Because we all know, I mean, for all my fellow brothers and sisters out there, that the black community has been very divided and very disparaged. There's no sense of unity for the longest time, and as a black man, that really uh, seemed disempowering to me. And reason being is that I was sick and tired of the high rate of black on black crime and how they were killing each other, and just remain disparaged, and they don't stand united as a community. So when I learned about Black Lives Matter at first, my first impression was, okay, maybe this should unite black people and be a movement, be something similar to the civil rights movement, as well as other movements like the Nation of Islam, or maybe something that inspires people to, fight the power, so to speak, power to the people, as they said back in the 90s during the events of the Million Man March, led by Louis Farrakhan. And I thought, okay, maybe there can be, maybe Black history will be, maybe Black history will have another figure in the United States. Not just like Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King, Marcus Garvey, Booker T. Washington, my favorite guy, Malcolm X, and other historical figures like Muhammad Ali and Jackie Robinson. Let's not forget about him. But and the list goes on and on. So I thought, okay, maybe this time more black people will remain united for the first time in like decades or something. Because I really hated seeing the idea of my fellow black people being disempowered. However, much to my dismay, I actually learned and I found out from a source that I read, at least, not found out, but what I read from another source, was that it was funded by George Soros, which to me raised a huge red flag because he has managed to fund um, Occupy Wall Street. And when he did all that, that's when you notice that there are a lot of spies and undercover agents disguising themselves as protesters, infiltrating the movement. So he seems to fund a lot of movements that run on the same evil spirit as the Ku Klux Klan. And let's not forget the elites, like the global elites or whatever. They funded the Ku Klux Klan. They funded the Nation of Islam. The same people who were funding the KKK were the same ones who were funding the Nation of Islam. Of course, when Malcolm X became powerful and he saw the real truth, and he even said that the same masters who were funding the KKK were funding the Nation of Islam. That's one of the many reasons why he got shot 15 times by his own former members, his people from the Nation of Islam. As a man who fought against racism, he rose above it only to be killed by his own people. And I thought to myself, well, maybe the Black Lives Matter movement can get black people to become strong and independent. But when I read that, I realized, okay, this is not. But the media, of course, shows you something different. They always show you them burning buildings and looting and rioting all the time. That's all they ever show you. However, on the other hand, instead of just making my judgment based off of what the media has said. I still wanted to be fair, uh, and still learn more about them. And from what I've learned, they fight against racial inequality. They stand up and give a voice to the deceased who were victims of police brutality. They raise awareness of economic injustice, um, and what's it called? And what's it called? Inequality and injustice towards those of color, as well. So I thought those are actually uh, pretty good things, from what I have read. However, I just don't like the fact that they were funded by George Soros, according to what I read. And that's the first thing I learned about them, believe it or not. But I still would like to learn more because I'm not heavily knowledged about Black Lives Matter as I am with like Nation of Islam, the Bilderberg Group, and Tavistock Institute, and these other globalist, elitist groups out there. And of course, when it comes to Black Lives Matter, of course, you know me, I love seeing the strength of black people united, spreading messages of fight the power and power to the people. I'm down for that. But Black Lives Matter they have endorsed Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, who are not the worst Democrats, obviously. I mean, they're much better than guys like Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, and Obama. I mean, much better by far. And of course, you guys already know how I feel about Bernie Sanders after he endorsed Hillary Clinton. I mean, I referred to him as a sellout in one of my other videos. However, I will say this though, Black Lives Matter, the other impression that I'm getting is that they are far too leftist. And that's the problem I have with Black Lives Matter. They seem too left wing, they seem too leftist, and I don't support the left wing. And I don't support them at all. The left wing, or should I say the liberals, I consider them like or should I say like, when I mean liberals, I mean like Democrats, who are really like left wing and are the same as the right wing. So I pretty much like consider the Democrats and Republicans like an enemy of mine because I see them as the enemy of uh, the United States, and I see them as the enemy of humanity. That's how deeply I hate them. So, so with that being said, Black Lives Matter supporting left wings too much. I mean, I will say this. I will really, really um, give myself a good reason to hate Black Lives Matter if they endorse an evil rapist like Joe Biden. So, with that being said, you know, they seem to be in favor of black people. But one thing I read about, as far as the research that I just started a few days ago, is that they don't seem to and I did a search on them, what's it called, doing raising awareness and fighting against what's it called, the travesties of black on black crime. And from what I've seen, from what I've looked up, the sources that I've read, they have not done anything to combat that problem. And black on black crime is more of an important issue than police brutality towards black people, because more people die in the black community as a result of black on black crime than police brutality. That right there is a fact. It has been statistically proven. So I find it very disconcerting that they haven't done anything to fight against that. That's my concern. Um, and I was really hoping when I first learned about them that it would be like a black nationalist movement, like the Nation of Islam or the Black Panthers, who I really think are the good guys. They're not really the bad guys like the mainstream media and the history books claim they are by inciting like, oh, they all want a race war or whatever. Um, because back in those days, the government didn't want a movement of strong, independent black people, or an independent black person who is an independent thinker like myself, who doesn't support the right wing or the left wing because they are both the enemy of humanity and the enemy of the state. who deserve to go to jail and be in prison for the rest of their lives. However, I will say this though, that they seem too left wing, these Black Lives Matter movement, and I feel that they seem to cater more towards black people who just so happen to be homosexuals and transgenders. Now, disclaimer: I don't have a problem with homosexuals, and I don't dislike anybody from that community. I'm just a person who is neither, not against them really. I don't. They never gave me problems in particular, so I'm fine with them. However, I will say this though, um, they seem to cater more towards uh, gay people and transgenders who are actually African American or black people. And it seems to be more of an LGBT movement, more so than a movement of giving a voice to black people. Because there's already a subdivision of Black Lives Matter and there's Black Trans Lives Matter from what I've read in my sources. I don't know if I can find those sources again, but I would like to learn more about Black Lives Matter to see if they can actually disprove and dispel the myths that I'm reading about the internet that they were funded by George Soros and they're funded by other corporations as well, like Amazon and I think Netflix was on the list, and obviously Google, I believe, as well. So, with that being said, I mean, I didn't get a very good impression of Black Lives Matter, and they seem to be more of an LGBT movement than a movement for specifically just black people, because black community and gay community are like two completely different things. And yet again, there's already division in the gay community, at least in Canada, because there's white gay people and black gay people. So, but that's what Black Lives Matter seems to be all about, an LGBT movement, which is very disconcerting and rather disappointing. And this is not something I'm listening to from Fox News. This is from my own research that I just started conducting. But I can't really give you a definitive answer because part of me is, already has my suspicions about them because of the what I read about them being funded by George Soros, who is a very evil man who claims to be doing good. And if he believes that he's a philanthropist at heart, then he's truly senile as well, or gone mentally deranged, if I should say, like Bill Gates. So I will say that Black Lives Matter. I have to give more of a definitive answer after doing some research on these guys. Anyway, thanks for watching my video. For any of the new viewers, just subscribe and please share my videos. And I'd like to get more subscribers, more views, and I would like to, hear your insights. And if you have more sources that you would recommend, as long as they're neutral based or whatever, then I'd really appreciate that. So thank you guys very much. Have a nice day now.